2022 Harley Lowrider S with a 117. The bike was wrecked. The rebuilt title is in progress. 2022 Indian Super Chief Limited with a 116 Thunderstroke. Wrecked bike, has a rebuilt title in progress. 2022 Indian Super Chief 111 Thunderstroke. Came with a junk title. It now has a clean title because we did a frame swap on it. We also have a 2017 Victory Magnum, which was wrecked, and we're currently trying to fix that. And it also has a clean title. The conversation needs to change, folks. Wrecked bikes, salvage bikes, cars, rebuilt, they're not exactly what they used to be. So kind of want to talk about what I do here and, my stance on rebuilt things compared to clean title things. So we have a couple of clean title bikes in here. The Victory Magnum, even though it was wrecked, it has a clean title. The Chieftain right there has a clean title. The Super Chief is in process of getting a clean title. The FXLRS again, rebuilt title in process, and also the Limited. But both of these bikes, the Harley and the Indian Super Chief Limited, I got those bikes from auction with salvage titles. The Super Chief, I got it with a junk title, and I did a full frame swap on that bike. But just because you have a clean title or you see someone selling a clean title, that does not mean that that bike or car has not gone through some type of trauma. A clean title simply means that the insurance company has not deemed it to be a total loss. So let's say you went through an accident situation with it and something was valued at $10,000 and it had $2,000 worth of damage. Well, the insurance company is probably going to fix that. But you may have something on the Carfax or the Bicasso, whatever, that shows that it was in an accident, but it would still have a clean title. Okay. And the issue with that Magnum back there, it was wrecked, and being that they don't make Magnums anymore, the cost of fixing them is significantly more. Well, the owner did not want it totaled, so we're fixing it, right? There is no indication that that bike ever went through a wreck. So it would still have a clean title even after we put everything back together, of course, fix it and then paint it. I had a friend that brought me his 2021 FTR Carbon. I can't remember exactly how much damage that bike had, but he low-sided it and messed it up pretty good. But a lot of it was like surface level scratches. The seat had a scuff on it, and he went to the dealership and had them do an insurance inspection on it because he went through an insurance claim. Well, the insurance, the dealership had so many parts marked off that it would have been total. They said that the frame needed to be swapped out, the seat had scuffs on it, and the way that this works is there's a single scuff on it, they're going to mark that off to be replaced, and that's what balloons the total price of the repair, not including labor, and that's what ends up leading to total. So he didn't want it total, so he brought it to me, and I think we got that bike fixed for under $1,000. The main issue was it needed a new rear brake pedal and it needed a new radiator. And when I rode the bike, I determined that the bike did not have a frame issue, but the frame did have a scuff where the steering stem touched the steering stop and it knocked the paint off of it. And they marked that off as it needing to be replaced. So his bike was saved and he's riding that bike, no issue. Like, you take your hands off the handlebar, everything rides straight. There's no cornering issues. The bike rides great. And it would have been totaled had he not decided to take another route. But he did end up getting money from his insurance to replace those parts. I think he got a couple grand from him, and he ended up replacing the parts, and I did it. So he saved a bunch of money and he got his bike back. So clean title once again. You could look at it and see the scuffs, but those scuffs could just be you dropping it in a parking lot. It doesn't mean that it low-sided and hit a curb. See what I'm saying? I bought two bikes before that both had clean titles and they had issues. M109R I bought. The owner said nothing about this, and I've spoken this before. The bike would drop from second back into neutral when you were riding it. So if you go first, second, as soon as you get ready to shift, boom, it drops back to neutral. You can just be riding on the throttle, it drops back to neutral. Come to find out, they had a bent shift for it. Have a dealership quote that, at least $3,000 fix, because the engine had to come out, they had to split the case, go all the way down into the gear, because on these type of bikes, the transmission is not separate from the engine like the Lowrider S is or the Milwaukee 8s. Okay, so it was a very, very expensive fix. The other bike I had, I knowingly bought it knowing that it wasn't running because the guy said, yeah, the bike's been sitting up for 2 years and it won't start. Come to find out the gas tank rusted out, which means that it was completely rusted out. Like no vinegar and bolts shaking it up, trying to get all that rust out was going to fix that. Just threw the gas tank away, got a new gas tank, blew out the fuel rail, blew out the injectors, and I fixed the bike. But those bikes, again, they both had clean titles. So you can have a clean title bike or be looking at one and it went through something. My M109R has a scuff on the right side of the tank. Clean title. I dropped that bike. Took a curve too deep. Hit some mud. Dropped the bike. Fell off of it. Yeah, almost went off a cliff. You could look at the bike other than that scuff and never knew that that's what happened. It looked like I just dropped it in a parking lot. Clean title. So, clean titles, again, it does not mean that you have a perfectly sound bike. Salvage titles. That's what these bikes come as when I get them from the auction. So what that means is that the insurance company has deemed that to be a total loss. If the bike was worth $10,000 and it had $8,000 worth of damage, I think most thresholds are like 70% of the value. So let's say $7,000 worth of damage. The insurance company is going to say, hey, we're not going to pay to fix this. The damage is too much. We're going to cut you a check for the value of it. And we're going to take ownership of it, send it to auction and make some of the money back. And that's when people like me, I come in and buy it. Okay. So what takes a salvage vehicle to a rebuilt state, you have to fix the majority of that damage and then verify that all the parts that you put on it were not stolen. And you have to go through like a DOT inspection, make sure you have signal lights, exhaust, seat, headlight, rear light. You know, you can't take a salvage bike and immediately go, hey, I want a rebuilt title. No, you have to actually replace parts and fix things. And that is what I've done to get my Harley a rebuilt title and my Super Chief Limited in process of getting both of these rebuilt titles. So it used to be where, you know, people would just be afraid of getting any of these bikes. And I understand that from a salvage perspective, but banks now are starting to finance buying rebuilt bikes. Insurance companies are giving insurance policies for rebuilt bikes. So now it's getting to the point where a rebuilt title is getting very close to a clean title. Because again, you can have a clean bike and it's just been totally wrecked. But the way I look at this now is that in this case of this Lowrider S, I was doing the numbers. A brand new Lowrider S is right at 18.2, and I'm looking to sell my Lowrider S for between 15, probably right at 15,000. I feel like that's the sweet spot for it. It has 11,200 miles on it. But a brand new Lowrider S is 18.2 with a 117, and for 60 months, because the majority of us are going to finance, that's 5 years, I think. Yeah, 5 years. Interest rate is around 6.5%, assuming you got good credit. 72 months is going to be around 9%. At 60 months, you're looking at it right at $3,000 of a finance charge. So that 18.2 is right at 21, assuming the dealership is going to give it to you at 18.2, because they might throw some destination fees, some setup fees, all that kind of stuff in there to inflate that price right at around 18.7, maybe even 19, depending on where you get it from. So let's just say 21,000. Not to mention, the bike is also going to take a $2,000 give or take float depreciation hit as soon as you drive it off the lot. So now that $21,000 bike is costing you right at 22 to 23,000, maybe, and you haven't even paid taxes on it within your state. So now you're probably looking at, again, an 18.2 bike is going to cost you right at 22,000 over the course of 22, 23, whatever the number is, over the course of 60 months. But my bike, right at 15,000, it leaves you room to add customizations to it, because this is a brand new bike you're getting off the floor with no customizations unless you started adding parts to it. And of course, that's going to inflate the price more. But my bike at 15,000, yes, you finance, you still have a finance charge, but there's no depreciation hit. I truly believe you could ride this Harley. You could ride that Super Chief back there, because that Super Chief only has, well, we'll get into that. The Harley, you could ride that bike for probably 2 years and still be able to sell it for right at 13,000, I believe, and pretty much make your money back. I truly believe that. My Super Chief Limited, I'm looking to sell that bike for right at 15,000. That bike only has 700 miles on it. 700 miles. I did a full frame swap on that bike. It had water damage. It originally was slated to be destroyed. It was junk. You had to part it out and sell it in individual pieces. But I bought the bike, did a full frame swap, cleaned all the mildew, water damage, everything on that bike. Bike runs mechanically, electronically, everything works as it should on that bike. There's one tear on the saddlebag. That's it. And also there's a few little rust spots on the spokes because there's so many spokes on there. 700 miles. You could ride that bike because a brand new one is $18,900 before taxes and everything. Finance charge and everything. You could ride that bike, I know, for 2 years, put 5,000 to 10,000 miles on it and still probably sell it for 13. And there's nothing wrong with the bike. So what I'm getting at is rebuilt bikes offer those who are willing, I guess, to take a risk, so much value, especially if you know where the bike is coming from. Especially in my case, all of my bikes, you can visually see how my bikes are being worked on because I show all of that here on the channel. My Super Chief Limited, for instance, I spent $1,800 on this bike just correcting the frame. The frame was bent. I could have just slapped a new front end on it and went with it, but I had the frame corrected, and that did cost $1,800. But that is a $21,500 bike before taxes, before financing. That is what you're going to pay for that bike, and I'm looking to sell it for right at, I don't know if I'm going to sell that bike yet, but it's probably going to go for about $15,000, and it has 550 some odd miles on it. And you can ride that bike for 2 years, give or take, probably more, put 10,000 miles on it and still sell it for $13,000 to $15,000. So you don't have to worry about depreciation hits on any of these bikes. So I guess my point is that the landscape has changed. Bikes have gotten so many miles on them, and people are looking at these used bikes and they think, oh, it's a clean title, there's nothing wrong with it. But behind the scenes could be somebody that dropped it in a parking lot. They could have dropped it in a ditch, went through the grass, just scuffed everything up and steel wooled it and put, touch-up paint to cover things up. Just because something is clean doesn't mean it is good. Just because something is rebuilt doesn't mean it's good. But the point is that if you're looking for a used bike, or if you're somebody like myself that doesn't necessarily want to pay new price, if you're willing to deal with a little scuff here, like on my Harley, there's a scuff on the handlebar, the grips need to be changed out. The exhaust has a scuff on it. I did put touch-up paint on the lower fork tube because it didn't make sense to change out the entire fork. If you can get past those things, you can probably get a really good deal on a rebuilt motorcycle. So definitely consider that. I am selling some of my bikes, but it is definitely worth the conversation. So let me know what your thoughts are on rebuilt bikes. Would you buy one, and have you considered one? And if so, what are your thoughts and concerns on it? Let's talk about it. But that's it. That's the post. Catch you in the next one. Peace.